The moment a narcissist sees you after a long stretch of no contact, something shifts immediately. Their mind does not go to closure. It does not move toward healing. It instantly asks one question: do I still have power over you? And the surprising part is this: within seconds of seeing you, they will usually do one very specific thing that reveals exactly how they view you, not as a person they lost, but as a source they might still regain. If you have ever gone no contact with someone like this, pause for a moment and ask yourself, when you saw them again, did they try to act normal, charming, or slightly provocative? Share your experience in the comments, because understanding these patterns is how people begin to break free from them. The very first thing a narcissist does when they see you after a long period of no contact is an instant emotional scan. It happens so fast that most people never even notice it. In those first few seconds, their focus is entirely on reading you. They are not reconnecting with you emotionally or thinking about the past in a reflective way. Instead, they are studying you. Their mind quickly shifts into observation mode. Their eyes often move across your face, your posture, and the way you carry yourself. Even small details like the way you stand, how quickly you look away, or the tone of your voice if you speak can become information for them. What they are searching for is evidence of emotional impact. They want to know if their presence still affects you. To them, this moment is like collecting data about whether their influence still exists. If your body language looks tense, if you avoid eye contact, or if you seem nervous or uncomfortable, they may quickly interpret that as proof that they still occupy space in your emotional world. For a narcissistic personality, this can feel like confirmation that the connection is not fully broken. It tells them that the psychological hold they once had might still be present in some way. But if you appear calm, confident, or indifferent, something shifts inside their reaction. The scan becomes deeper and more focused because they are trying to understand what changed. Narcissistic personalities depend heavily on emotional feedback from others to maintain their sense of importance. When you go no contact, that feedback disappears completely. So when they suddenly see you again, it feels like access to a signal they have been cut off from. In those brief moments, they are measuring whether the emotional cord they once relied on is still there. And that silent evaluation often determines how they behave next. The second thing a narcissist often does when they see you after a period of no contact is test whether they still have control over your emotional responses. This test can be extremely subtle, and in many cases, it happens so naturally that it almost looks casual. But beneath the surface, there is a clear purpose. They want to know if they can still influence how you feel, react, or behave. This testing can show up in many different forms. Sometimes it is a simple greeting that feels strangely familiar, as if nothing difficult ever happened between you. They might say your name in the same tone they used during the relationship, hoping that the familiarity triggers an emotional response. Other times, the test might come through a small comment, a joke, or even a slightly dismissive remark. Each of these behaviors is designed to see if you will react. For a narcissistic personality, reactions are extremely important. Emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, signal that the connection still exists. If you smile nervously, explain yourself, defend your decisions, or even show anger, they often interpret that as proof that they still have access to your emotional world. In their mind, this means the door is not fully closed. On the other hand, if you remain calm, neutral, and emotionally steady, the test does not give them the response they were expecting. This can create visible confusion or discomfort for them because the dynamic they once relied on is no longer working in the same way. The absence of emotional reaction disrupts the pattern they are used to controlling. What makes this moment powerful is that the test happens quickly and often without words. A glance, a tone of voice, or a short interaction can be enough for them to gauge whether they can still pull you back into the old emotional rhythm that once defined the relationship. Another very common reaction when a narcissist sees you after a long period of no contact is what can be called the nothing happened act. Instead of acknowledging the conflict, the hurt, or the chaos that led to the separation, they behave as if the past simply does not exist. The interaction suddenly feels strangely normal, almost casual, as though the history between you has been erased. They may greet you with a relaxed smile, ask how you have been, or start a light conversation about everyday things. On the surface, it can feel confusing because the tone does not match the reality of what actually happened. For someone who experienced emotional manipulation, arguments, or a painful breakup, this kind of normal behavior can feel disorienting. It creates a moment where you might question your own memory of the past. For the narcissistic personality, this behavior serves a very specific purpose. Acknowledging the past would require accountability, reflection, and the willingness to admit harm. Those are things that threaten their sense of control and self-image. By acting as if nothing happened, they protect their internal narrative that they were never the problem in the first place. This tactic also works as a quiet psychological test. If you go along with the casual tone and respond in the same way, they may interpret it as a sign that the emotional boundary has weakened. In their mind, it suggests that the situation can simply reset without responsibility or change. It opens the possibility of re-entering your life without addressing the damage that caused the separation. For many people, this moment becomes a powerful realization. The lack of acknowledgement is not forgetfulness or maturity. It is often a deliberate way of avoiding accountability while attempting to restore access to the relationship dynamic that once benefited them. Another common reaction is the sudden activation of charm. When a narcissist sees you after a period of no contact, they may quickly switch into a warm, friendly, and even flattering version of themselves. The shift can feel almost immediate, as if a different personality has appeared. Their voice becomes softer, their smile wider, and their energy more inviting than you remember from the difficult moments that led to the separation. This behavior is rarely random. For a narcissistic personality, charm has always been a powerful tool. It is the same quality that may have drawn you in at the beginning of the relationship. When they sense that distance or boundaries exist, they sometimes return to that original strategy because it worked before. They hope the familiarity of that warmth will awaken old feelings and make the interaction feel comfortable again. They may compliment you, mention a pleasant memory from the past, or speak in a way that feels unusually attentive. On the surface, it can appear kind or even sincere, but beneath that charm is often a quiet goal. They are trying to reopen the emotional connection that no contact interrupted. If you respond positively, laugh with them, or appear touched by the attention, it signals that the door might still be partially open. For someone who has been healing and rebuilding distance, this moment can feel confusing. The kindness might not match the painful experiences you remember. That contrast can create doubt and make you question whether the situation was really as harmful as it once felt. The sudden charm is less about genuine reconciliation and more about influence. It is an attempt to recreate the early dynamic of attraction and emotional pull, the same dynamic that once allowed them to regain closeness and attention whenever the relationship began to slip away. If charm does not work, another reaction that often appears is provocation. When a narcissist sees you after a period of no contact and cannot easily pull you back with friendliness or warmth, they may shift into a different strategy. Instead of trying to attract you, they try to trigger you. The goal is simple: provoke an emotional reaction. This can happen through small but pointed remarks. They might make a sarcastic comment, bring up something from the past in a dismissive way, or say something that subtly questions your decisions. Sometimes the provocation is even quieter, such as a smirk, an eye roll, or a dismissive tone that suggests they are unimpressed or amused by your distance. These behaviors are not random. They are attempts to disrupt your emotional balance. For a narcissistic personality, any emotional reaction can serve as validation. Anger, frustration, defensiveness, or even visible discomfort tells them that they still have the ability to affect you. In their mind, if they can make you react, they still have a form of connection and influence. The emotion itself does not matter as much as the fact that it exists. What makes this tactic particularly powerful is that it targets the history you share. They often know exactly which subjects, memories, or insecurities once created strong reactions in you. By touching those sensitive areas, they try to reopen the emotional dynamic that existed before no contact. When the provocation fails and you remain calm or disengaged, the effect can be noticeable. The expected reaction does not appear, and the interaction loses the emotional energy they were trying to create. Without that reaction, the old pattern they once relied on no longer functions in the same way. Another thing that often happens in that moment is a silent comparison. When a narcissist sees you after a long period of no contact, they quickly begin evaluating your life without them. This process is usually quiet and internal, but it strongly influences how they behave during the interaction. Their attention moves to signs that might reveal whether you are doing better, worse, or exactly the same since the relationship ended. They may look at your appearance, the way you carry yourself, and the level of confidence in your body language. Even small details can become signals to them. If you appear calm, well put together, or emotionally steady, they may interpret that as evidence that you have moved forward. That realization can be uncomfortable for them because it challenges the belief that they were central to your happiness or stability. At the same time, they may search for signs that suggest struggle or vulnerability. If you seem nervous, distracted, or uncertain, they may quietly take that as confirmation that the separation affected you more deeply than it affected them. In their mind, this can reinforce the narrative that they were the stronger or more important person in the dynamic. This comparison is closely tied to their need to maintain a sense of superiority or control in the story of the relationship. Seeing you thrive without them can feel threatening because it suggests that their presence was not as essential as they once believed. On the other hand, seeing any sign of distress may give them a sense of validation. Because of this, the way you present yourself in that brief encounter can carry more meaning to them than you might realize. They are quietly measuring where they stand in comparison to you. Now, Another thing that happens very quickly when a narcissist sees you after a long period of no contact is the protection of their personal narrative. Narcissistic personalities often carry a very specific story in their mind about the relationship and about themselves. In that story, they are rarely the one at fault. They may see themselves as the misunderstood one, the victim, or the person who was unfairly treated. When they encounter you again, that internal story becomes extremely important to defend. Because of this, their behavior in that moment is often designed to maintain that version of reality. They might act unusually confident, indifferent, or even slightly superior. This posture sends a message that they are completely unaffected by the separation. It allows them to preserve the image that they were never hurt, never rejected, and never responsible for what happened between you. Sometimes this protection of their narrative shows up in subtle comments or attitudes. They might speak in a way that implies they have moved on easily or that the past situation was not a serious issue. In other cases, they may behave as if they barely remember the conflict at all. Each of these reactions helps them maintain psychological distance from accountability. What makes this behavior significant is that acknowledging the true history of the relationship would challenge their self-image. Accepting responsibility would mean confronting mistakes, harm, or emotional impact they caused. For many narcissistic personalities, that level of reflection feels threatening to their identity. So when they see you again, they instinctively move to protect the story they tell themselves. The way they carry themselves, the tone they use, and the emotions they show are all shaped by the need to keep that internal narrative intact, even if it means ignoring or minimizing the reality of what actually happened. The final reaction that often occurs when a narcissist sees you after a long period of no contact is a rapid attempt to hoover or pull you back into their orbit. This is usually immediate and almost instinctive. As soon as they see you, if they perceive any opportunity to regain access to your attention, they may try to act on it without hesitation. The hoovering can take many forms, from casual conversation to sudden charm, or even an invitation to reconnect in some way. This behavior is driven by their desire to restore the emotional supply they lost when you went no contact. Narcissists rely on attention, validation, and emotional reactions to maintain their sense of self-importance. When you disappear from their life, that supply is cut off, and seeing you again can trigger an almost automatic response to reclaim it. Often, the attempt to hoover is subtle at first. They might start with a friendly greeting, a compliment, or a casual question about your life. These actions are designed to reopen communication without appearing pushy or aggressive. If the initial attempt seems successful, they may escalate their efforts, increasing attention or trying to evoke memories and emotions that once drew you in. Even if you remain distant, the quick hoover attempt serves another purpose: testing boundaries. They are checking to see if you are still vulnerable to manipulation or if the no contact boundary is strong. Their reaction in these moments can reveal a lot about how much control they feel they still have. In short, this instant attempt to reconnect is less about reconciliation or genuine concern and more about regaining influence. The goal is always to measure, provoke, or reclaim access to the emotional and psychological engagement they once relied on from you. In conclusion, seeing a narcissist after a period of no contact is never just a casual encounter. Every glance, word, and gesture is calculated, often happening within seconds. From the instant emotional scan to testing your reactions, From acting as if nothing happened to switching on charm or even provoking you, every move serves a purpose to assess, influence, and regain control. They compare your current state to their internal narrative, protect their ego, and may attempt a rapid hoover to pull you back into the old dynamic. Understanding these patterns is crucial because it shifts the power back to you. When you recognize these behaviors for what they are, strategic, self serving, and emotionally manipulative, you can maintain your boundaries, preserve your peace, and interact on your own terms. This clarity allows you to walk away confident, knowing that their reactions reflect their need for supply and control, not your worth or value. The more you see through these tactics, the stronger you become and the less influence they have over you.